Today we're getting experimental with the 2023 Ibis DV9. I've had this bike in for a little while now and I put a lot of miles on it, and so has my wife. She loves this thing, as do I. With lighter riders, a lightweight bike makes a huge difference. When I talk to her, she says, you know, 1 or 2 pounds doesn't seem like much, but when a bike is 1/3 of your body weight, shaving 10% off makes a big difference, and it's noticeable. And she's able to lift this up ledges and stuff just a lot easier than some of her other bikes that are a lot heavier. So this was the GX model, and I mentioned a few things that I thought could be improved. Today we're gonna do a couple experiments, swap some parts on to test some stuff I've got for review, and see if we can improve how this DV9 rides. The main thing I don't love about this is the poor engagement on the rear hub. We're actually gonna swap the wheels out for some Elite Carbon NAR Trail 30 wheels, but we're gonna throw them on here to see how it transforms this bike. The Blackbird wheels don't look bad at all. They're very understated, but these Elite wheels are just beautiful. They're kind of like a gloss graphite color. I think they're absolutely beautiful, and there's a little bit of fade on the hubs. These wheels retail for $939 for carbon wheels with 302 points of engagement, and they come in at 1625 grams. I have a 15% off discount code for all of you guys. Using it supports this channel and it saves you $140. At the time of filming, that means you can get this wheel set for under $800. You get a much lighter wheel set and you get that fast engagement hub. This is really gonna wake this bike up. Not to mention, they just look absolutely gorgeous. Lighter wheels on a bike like this makes such a difference. When I reviewed the bike, there were a couple techie spots where the slop in the drivetrain prevented me from getting up some tough moves. I love the look of tan walls, but I don't believe in picking the wrong tire tread for your trails just because they look sexy. I'm getting this bike ready for a very specific ride. My buddy Cody and I are chipping away at our goal to section ride the Arizona Trail. It's an 800-mile trail that crosses Arizona, goes from Utah to Mexico across our beautiful state. We're 400 miles done, we're halfway. Tomorrow we're gonna ride 110 miles across 2 days. We're gonna camp at night. Not gonna be full bike packing, we're gonna be car camping. We got a shuttle halfway. We're just going for fun. But I'm setting this bike up to maximize that journey. So we've got the Recon Race on the rear, which is what this bike came with. I actually love this tire, and we have a Recon up front. I don't normally love the Recon, but in Flagstaff, where we're going, and in Prescott in Arizona, I do love the Recon up front. Don't love it out back. I actually find the Recon Race works a little better for me. One of the challenges of doing a 65-mile day on the bike in the desert of Arizona is carrying enough water. Thankfully, the DV9 has 2 water bottle holders, so I can fit 2 full water bottles. I still don't think that's gonna be enough, and so I'm gonna try something unique on here, a new product that I've only seen online that I'm excited to show you. This is called the Crank Tank. It's a water bottle that fits in your frame, usually. Now this is the Crank Tank 4. It's a 4-liter, and it's not quite fitting because of this low standover, so I'm gonna show the Crank Tank 3. The Crank Tank 3 is 3 liters, and it just sits right in there in your frame and carries the weight super low, but fits a ton of water in there. Cranks are still clearing. I'm gonna see if I can squeeze the 4 in here. I'm also gonna put a little bit more padding in between here because this is a carbon frame. I don't wanna rub it, but I'm surprised with how securely that sits in there, and I haven't even strapped it on yet. But it's meant to be a universal fit that fits all frames, at least hardtails or something with this much triangle space in it. So I can now fit 3 liters on here, 4 liters with the bigger one. I think we can coax the bigger one in here. Let's see. It does have these rubber pads on it. Oh, I think we can do this. There we go, the 4 fit with a little persuasion. Wow, that's cool. Look at that, 4 liters right there. This is BPA-free plastic, it's food grade. They've got this dark gray color, which actually looks really good with this. They've got this lighter color, which makes it a little easier to see your liquid levels in there. We've got some different cap options, but this straw screws on and sits down in the bottom, and then you hook your straw from here up to your bars or wherever you want so you can drink while you're riding. But that's just a really efficient use of space to be able to get some water in there. But this is about double the amount of water I'd get if I had 2 water bottles in there. It's also got a cap if you just want to use it as a water storage and not drink out of it. You can do that as well. It comes with adhesive protective strips. What I'm going to do is use an old inner tube and place it along here. It may not be sexy, but this isn't my bike. I have to send it back to Ibis and I don't want to scratch it up. So I'm going to protect it with a little bit of inner tube. That's what I would do anyway bike packing. Personally, I don't love bike packing on carbon frames because I worry about abrasion. Just the rattling of all the gear does raise the chance of abrading through the paint and even through the carbon. I've seen that in some cases. So personally, I always love metal bikes, but this bike's too cool not to take on this. And I think we can protect it perfectly in here. Oh, I'm excited for this. I saw one of these at the supermarket 2 years ago on the bike, and I thought, that is the coolest thing ever. And I didn't know what it was called, and I couldn't find it to research it. And then one of you said, hey, what do you think of the crank tank? That seems like a good way to carry stuff. And found out, yeah, you're spot on. It sure does. I'm using gaffer's tape, which is the same width as that strap. The nice thing about gaffer's tape is it comes off without leaving a sticky residue like duct tape. What a great use of frame space. This is a size medium. If you saw my Sea Otter recap video, you saw these Passchier bars. These are bamboo bars and they're meant to flex. They're meant for comfort. You can see the forward sweep, then the back sweep. I think a trail ride like what I'm doing tomorrow is going to be perfect for these. I'm going to be in the saddle all day. It's mostly flattish roads. There's not a ton of elevation. And I think the comfort in my hands of just not getting all those micro vibrations is really going to pay off. We'll see. That's the idea. It's got a different bar sweep. Those of you that suffer from sore wrists from the straight bars, you might like something a little more back swept like this. So we're going to throw these on and see how they feel in this context. Beautiful. Look at that. Ooh, that's got a cool look to it, doesn't it? If this can reduce hand numbness for people who struggle with that, that's going to be a game changer. These have a beautiful clear coat on them. So try not to scratch them when you're installing these things, but it's not going to, make them weaker. It's just going to make them uglier. Wow, those look different. It's totally got like an old 50s surf vibe to me. Love it. All right, since I'm going to be bike packing, I'm going to raise my stem a bit. I like a taller stack when I'm sitting on these all day long. 8 hours hunched over starts to stress the neck and the back, so even just 1 centimeter taller makes a noticeable difference. I'm going to be running my brand new Wahoo Elemnt Roam V2, and this is the K-Edge top cap that accepts your little computer on there. Love running that. And then the final step to get ready is to use my favorite chain lube, this SCC Tech Ride It Slick chain lube. This lubricates and cleans your drivetrain. I love this stuff. You need a clean chain to start with. If you start with a dirty chain, it takes quite a few applications of this to really kick in, but once it's all you run on your chain, it's wonderful. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them. They're not a sponsor. I just love their product. It's fun getting experimental and trying new things, and what a great way to test out all this different stuff. I've been lucky enough to try maybe 15 different wheel sets and so many different bars and all sorts of different stuff on this channel. And if you want my personalized bike consultation for how to build up your next bike, or you're looking for wheel recommendations or fork recommendations or handlebar recommendations or frame or bike recommendations, I do that over on Patreon. I'd be happy to help you over there. We work one-on-one. You answer some questions and we go back and forth, and then I make some really personalized recommendations for your needs. It's because of experimental videos like this where I get to try tons of different things that I'm able to offer that service with a lot of experience trying different stuff. Anyway, if you guys are interested in that, sign up over at patreon.com/hardtailparty. I've got my Crank Brothers Mallet E pedals. I've got some regular egg beaters coming, but they're not here yet. I would have tried those otherwise. I'm in love with these. I've switched from SPDs to Crank Brothers. I love No slop and no float, no up and down, no rocking. It just feels like I'm on a platform pedal, but also clipped in. There's just no drama. I really like that. No slop in there. And now when I ride SPDs, I just feel the slop like crazy. We've got the Crank Tank 4, the 4-liter water bottle carrier on here. That's exciting. We've got these amazing Elite wheels. Super high engagement. They're noisy wheels, listen. Super noisy. Some people love that. I used to love that in my BMX racing days. We've got these Passchier bamboo bars that have some flex in them that should give me some comfort. They're 760 wide, a lot of back sweep, and I rolled them forward so they have some upsweep. I gotta have some upsweep when I ride. We are running the Wahoo Elemnt Roam V2. I just got this in. I don't normally ride with computers, but on bike packing and long distance routes, I always do. It helps me know when a summit's coming, how hard to push it, how much energy I can save. It helps me see how far along I am throughout the day. It's very much a mental thing for me, just mentally setting accurate expectations throughout the day. And that helps me a lot. I've got it on a K-edge top cap, so it just mounts straight to the top cap. I'm a big fan of Wahoo. I've tried so many different computers, but Wahoos are my favorite. I'm also running Ergon GA2 fat grips. They're a little more cushioned than the regular GA2s. These are my favorite bike packing grips. A lot of people like the GA3s that have this wing that you can rest your palm on. And I do like these when the terrain is totally the same pitch the whole time. But I find when I'm going uphill or up and over things or I need to bunny hop or something, this little wing gets in the way. And I don't realize how much I changed my grip. But the problem with this is if I'm gripped and the wing's where it needs to be and then I dip down somewhere, it forces my wrist in an odd angle. And I actually find myself fighting with this little wing. So the way I ride, it doesn't quite work for me, but a lot of people love it. If you're experiencing hand numbness or hand fatigue, a lot of people make it go away with these Ergon GA3s. They have some with even wider wings, but those definitely aren't for me. I think these GA2 fats are going to be the ticket. I don't normally like huge grips, like huge diameter, and these are a good in between, but they have extra cushion on the fat ones. I'm really excited for these Passchier bars. You can just flex them even in the stand, and I think for how this is going to be ridden, 110 miles over 2 days and not just shredding, I think I'm going to like that flex, but we'll see. It's all an experiment. I'm excited for this Crank Tank as well. I think that thing's going to be really cool to test out. What a great way to carry so much water without just having bottles hanging off everywhere. I love getting experimental. I think everybody should when they can. If you got a buddy who had some bars and he's getting rid of them or he's not using them, throw them on, try it out, see if you like it. The more you experiment, the more you learn what you like and what you don't like. And the more geometry starts to make sense, the more bike fit starts to make sense. It's just a really good way to find out what suits you and what doesn't. I know this isn't going to win Sexiest Bike of the Year award. I don't care about that. I do think the handlebars are sexy though. And I think these tan walls look really good. And I think these Elite rims look really good. I don't think this is the biggest fashion icon in the world. But guess what? I ride bikes to enjoy my time in the outdoors. Not worry about, ooh, I wonder if I looked cool to that person I just passed. Who cares? I'm here to ride for me, not for other people. So I had every intention of filming this on my 110-mile trip with my buddy Cody on the Arizona Trail. But wearing a GoPro for 55 miles in 10 hours is pretty uncomfortable. So I decided not to film it, which is good because I was still tweaking the setup anyway. So here I am 110 miles later on a local trail in Sedona to ride this and tell you what it feels like. I made a couple tweaks. I put different tires on. I've got a Wicked Wheel in the back and a Specialized Eliminator grid trail up front. One other change I've done is I've added a 60 mil stem. The Passchier bars with I think it was a 40 mil stem, something short from Ibis, were not working well at all. It totally changed the handling. I felt like my hands were behind the steering axis. I still feel that way. I'm going to talk about that more when I ride it, but it just made the front end it made the bike feel super slack, like 63 degrees. It made the front end wash. It just felt sluggish, and I had very little confidence initiating turns and sticking to them because the front just wanted to wash. On day 2, I swapped the bars out for some NVM6 bars, and my handling came back instantly. So there's something about the sweep and the handlebar position I mean, if you look at it, even with the 60 mil stem, it's about even with the back of my computer here. So it definitely changes how the bike steers. And the bars also have 0 rise. And so most of the bars I ride have between 20 and 35 mil rise. That's where it rises up from the clamp. And so the handlebars are a lot more forward and higher. Because this has 0 rise, I've added all the spacers underneath and run the stem as high as I can to try and get the handling back that this had before. These bars have so much flex. I hope I can show this on camera very well. If you just push down here, you can just really flex these things. So these are the flexiest bars I've ever ridden. Even with the 60 mil stem, the steering's a little bit weird. Your hand position just feels behind the steering axis, which is really odd feeling. This is a lot better than the 40 mil stem though. But yeah, these are soft bars. I learned a lot about this actually from this experiment. So I thought, I'm on the softest bars on the planet on a 55-mile day. I'm gonna have 0 wrist pain. And surprisingly, I did still have a lot of fatigue in my wrists afterwards. And even though these are really soft bars with a lot of give, still took a beating. Part of that's because these wheels are fairly stiff, and that's transferred a lot of vibration to my wrists. But soft bars alone are not going to be the end-all be-all for wrist pain. I like the back sweep. That was nice. But in the end, on day 2, I swapped to an NV bar, an M6 bar, 25 mil rise, 760 width. And even though it's a stiffer bar and I got more vibrations, my hands were less fatigued at the end of the day. Really interesting. If you're riding like 7/10 to 10/10, you're gonna feel the flex in these bars. When you get in a corner and you push on the bars, you'll feel them flex. If you're just cruising and just kind of casually riding, it's actually really nice. I also like the hand position. The back sweep's nice. I'm glad these have a forward sweep before the back sweep, because otherwise the steering would be downright unrideable in my opinion. So these flex a lot like a leaf spring. Flexier than any bar I've tried. And I feel like on big impacts or big power moves you feel them flex, but they still didn't take out all the micro vibrations like I'd hoped. I'd love to see these in a more traditional mountain bike shape. I think I would absolutely love them. They're the most beautiful bars I've seen. They really make the bike pop. I think they look fantastic. I'm really proud to have them on my bike. There were no issues, no cracks or creaks or anything weird with them. It's just the shape doesn't quite work for modern mountain biking. And in talking with them, they can only put so many curves into a bar, because the more the bar is curved, the weaker it gets. And so if we had an up sweep and a back sweep, they said it was not very feasible. Still, I'd love to experiment with that and see if we could get one that has the steering and handling characteristics of a traditional bar with that nice soft flex of these. It's kind of like the difference between high-speed compression and low-speed compression. I feel like they're good for low-speed movements. That's when they flex the most. But when I need it the most is on higher speed chatter, and they've still got to be absorbing some of that chatter. And when I did put the NVs on, I felt like they were noticeably stiffer, but the handling was far more precise. So yeah, maybe we can find the right stem to pair this with so you can get your old handling back. This 60 mil is way better than the 40 mil, but it's still not quite the same handling as the stock Ibis. So handling wise, I think I want to step back. Comfort wise on the bars, 2 steps up. I like the comfort. I think they're beautiful. I think we just need to find the geometry and the sweep on these that works with modern mountain biking. That 0 rise was super noticeable too. I was very hunched over. I think that actually put more weight on my hands being so hunched over. And it took me a little while to figure it out. I'm like, what the heck? Why does this feel so different? And then I'm like, oh yeah. Not only is it a no rise, it kind of sags when you weight it. I love seeing companies think outside the box, using sustainable materials like bamboo and factoring in compliance in their products. Bravo, Passchier. I think it's just the shape that was a little off for me. It's riding better today with this longer stem. I really like the Ergon fat grips. They were the right choice. They felt good on that envy bar and took a little bit of the sting out. Man, this bike is fantastic. I love the DV9. I know a lot of you were hoping I'd throw a 140 fork on this. I thought about it, but I don't think this is the right bike to do that on. And I know everybody wants the best of all worlds. Super light, carbon, slack, lots of travel, and still be zippy. And I know that's what a lot of the commenters are hoping for with this. But to me, that's kind of like lifting a Mazda Miata instead of just buying a Subaru. Like, Mazda Miatas do their thing so well. And then when you take them out of their element by lifting them and putting heavy tires on them, it kind of isn't great at anything anymore. And I feel that's how the DV9 would be. It's interesting, even though this is rated for a 140 fork, in the FAQs, it said, is this rated for a 140 mil Fox 36? Ibis said no. The 36 chassis is too stiff, and the head tube of the DV9 is not rated for that much stiffness, especially at 140 mil. And I think Ibis would agree, like, if that's what you're doing, if you're needing a 140 mil 36, the DV9 is not the right bike for that. And frankly, I don't know of many carbon hardtails that are meant for big forks. If you need a 140 mil Fox 36 on your hardtail, I don't know if carbon's the right material for you anyway, and if super lightweight's going to be what you need. Bravo for Ibis for leaving some uncut steer tube in there so that we could experiment with bar height. I think the back sweep is going to appeal to trekkers and travelers and bike packers. You're just probably going to have to run a longer stem if you're on a modern bike like this, and possibly a riser stem. So I wonder if we can work out a shape that still has this nice comfortable back sweep, that still has the nice flex, but doesn't have the weird hand position compared to where its steering axis is. Let's talk about the Wahoo Elemnt Roam V2. Absolutely love this thing. It's unreal how accurate these are. The V2 got dual band GPS. Cody and I were riding together, and every time we'd miss a turn, they would beep identically at the same exact time. And every time we got back on, they would beep identically. He has the V1 and I have the V2. And these are just hands down my favorite cycling computer. It does integrate with Trailforks. They've got a nice app. It's really easy to get your maps on it. I don't Strava. Strava kind of sucks the fun out of rides for me. But if you do Strava, it integrates with that. It integrates with your Garmin watch. Integrates with power meters, all sorts of stuff. I use it for loading my routes on. So that route of the Arizona Trail, Flagstaff to the Grand Canyon, 110 miles. We put it on there. Flawless. Never had a single hiccup. It beeps at me when I get off my route. It's just really fun. I love the form factor. I've got the K-Edge mount for it. I've drilled a little hole in the center of my cap so I can still tighten the headset bolt without having to pull these little guys off. That was a great modification. But man, this thing has been wonderful. It lasted the 2 days, no problem. In fact, I haven't charged it since. It's got maps on here. It's got your heart rate monitors. It's got hills coming up. It'll tell you how much longer you have to go on a climb, and that's just been so wonderful. And on an unknown trail where I haven't ridden it before, knowing, should I keep pushing or should I relax, or how much longer will this go? Man, for bike packing and multi-day trips and even long trips in new terrain, your phone can do a lot of these things, but a dedicated device like this is awesome. How it'll beep at me when I'm off route. It'll say turn around. You missed a turn. I can put notes in there and it'll read the notes to me while I'm coming up to them. It all depends on how much work you want to put into planning your trips. But this can even see the trails I'm on right now. Huge fan of the Wahoo Elemnt Roam. If you're getting into bike packing or exploring or long days, I've tried 4 or 5 different computers. This is by far my favorite. The DV9 is such a special bike. This new one is great. These wheels have kicked the performance up another notch, and it just feels even lighter and even faster. What a special bike. Thank you, Ibis, for sending this in so we could get experimental. It's going to be sad to send this one back, but we'll be ready for the next DV9 when you are. Let's talk about the crank tank. That's this 4-liter, 1-gallon water bottle I've got in here. It looks like it was made for this frame. It's the same color. It fits in there like a glove. It hasn't shifted one bit. This thing was a game changer on that. We did a 55-mile day in Arizona in June, 2 55-mile days. And I just fill this up at the top of the day, and between that gallon and the half gallon I had on my hip pack, that was all the water I needed all day. And they have a little straw in there and like a tube that'll come up that you can turn it into like a hydration bladder type, drinking it straight out of there, and that works. I tested it in my garage, but I didn't want hoses like all over the place. I just wanted a simple, clean setup when I was riding it. And so I just opted for just throwing this cap on here and using it as a fill tank. So I'd drink the bottles in my hip pack, and then when it was empty, I would refill it from here. And it wasn't elegant. I was like leaning the bike like this, and it actually worked better than I thought. I still have water in here. You can see the water level. See it shaking around in there. There were a couple times when it was about 80% full. I'd get in a rhythm on the climb, and the slosh would kind of create a rhythm. And that was the only time I noticed that on the bike. It carries the weight low. It has no plastic taste. It's been absolutely wonderful. And I will be using this on more trips, on more bikes. I love it. How would I change it? I would change it for my use, which is not how most people are going to use it. I would offset the fill cap over here a little bit more. It's hard to fill. It'd be easier if I could fill it over here. Another thing I'd love, because I'm a nerd and this is how I use it, is I'd love a little spout here at the lowest point to fill my water bottle right there. But I realize most people are going to be drinking directly from here. But still, I'm a huge fan. When I pulled it out of the box, I thought, this looks kind of cheesy. It looks kind of, I don't know, low budget. I couldn't be more impressed after using it. There's been a lot of thought that went into it. I love how we've got this clearance cut out in here. I love how well it fit into that frame. And it's going to fit every frame slightly different. I loved how well it held on with those Velcro straps. And to be honest, I don't even notice it's on there. My legs don't rub it. My feet don't rub it. It's nice and wide. You can see it's wider than a saddle, wider than the top tube. But because it kind of tapers down at the front, it's totally out of the way. There's been so much thought that's been put into this. And I'm a huge fan of this. It makes multi-day trips where I need to carry a ton of water tons easier. And it fit perfectly on the DV9. A big part of this DV9 that I'd wished was different when I was reviewing it was those low engagement hubs that it came with. And it was just the budget build, the GX build, which truthfully is more NX than GX. But it has a GX cassette and it has a GX derailleur. These wheels are stiff, which is usually the case with affordable carbon wheels. And they have made the bike have more vibrations to it. I get a little bit less control. I skip across things more than track the ground. And you really do notice stiff wheels on a hardtail far more than on a full suspension, though you do notice it on a full suspension too. Still, for the price, I wasn't expecting these to be absolutely perfect at everything. So with the 120 TPI tires I had on here on my trip to Flagstaff, they felt nice and smooth. And they're not ridiculously stiff. They're slightly stiffer than an average carbon wheel set. So longevity, still on the fence, but as far as the wheel construction and the wheel build, man, it's awesome. And these are light wheels. You definitely feel that. Even when this thing had a gallon of water in it, 8 extra pounds on the frame, you notice the lighter wheels. And it made this zippy bike even zippier. And I love the high engagement. The high engagement definitely stepped the improvement up, especially on technical climbs. It just took this bike up another level in how premium it feels. That stiffness does take away a little from the ride quality. So depending on where you live, it might beat you up a little, or if you're in really smooth terrain, man, for the price, these super light wheels with high engagement, nice 30i wide, just beautiful wheels. I'm proud to show these off. They look great, and man, they're quick. This bike just got faster with these wheels on. A little bit stiffer, a little bit rougher ride, but I definitely think they're an upgrade. And as long as you're not in super rocky terrain like me, it's gonna be a great upgrade for your DV9. Wheels and tires are the two #1 upgrades you can make to any bike. Picking tires that work best for your terrain cannot be overstated. So many people have only ridden 1 or 2 different tires and they just kind of stick with them through their whole life. And that's good because you get consistent, you know what they feel like. But man, changing tires can make a bike feel totally different. Feels like a completely different bike. Yeah, this bike feels lighter, zippier, a little more alive, a little more exciting with these wheels. Yeah, I'd probably consider getting this GX build, throwing on like a GX shifter or an XO1 shifter, throwing on these wheels if your terrain's not too rocky, getting a different dropper lever because this one is terrible, and just loving life on this thing. And this Stepcast 34 is a great little fork. A lot of people are going to wonder, can you run 27.5 plus on here? Ibis intentionally built the frame to not fit 27.5 by 2.8s. They made sure it wasn't compatible. They went out of their way to do that because they knew the bottom bracket would be low enough that it would cause problems. So Ibis's response is, if you like plus tires on a hardtail, go 29 by 2.6 on this thing. In my opinion, when you go up to like a 2.6 tire, consider going down in tread aggressiveness. So if you ride like a 2.3 DHF up front and you want to go to a 2.6, try something like a 2.6 Recon or 2.6 Dissector or even a 2.6 Icon. As your tires get bigger and wider, those big knobs actually become proportionally too big to interact with the terrain. And since you have so much rubber on the ground, because they're wider, you can get away with smaller knobbies that'll give you the same amount of traction as you're used to with your DHR, but with faster rolling smaller knobbies and the cushion of the big tires. So I'm a fan of big wide tires, especially when you go one step more towards the XC side of things on your tire selection. So yeah, these Elite wheels, jury's still out. I need to put more miles on them. They're loud, louder than I like. Definitely kick the performance of this bike up. So in summary, are the updates worth it? For some things, yes. For some things, no. Passchier bars are awesome. They just made the steering a little funky. It's better now, but not as good as stock. So hopefully we can experiment with them on some different shapes, because I like the feel and I like the look and I like being different, and they're wonderful for that. As long as you're not hucking gap jumps and riding, bike park on these things. They're more meant for a touring bar. The wheels, they're light, they're a little stiff, really high engagement, incredible value. They feel very high quality, but I need to put more miles on them before I can speak to the reliability. And then the crank tank. I'm such a fan, living in the desert, bike packing, doing these, 8-hour days and not having to stop to refill water is unreal. And it carries that water so well on there. And yeah, there's a little bit of sloshing effect, but not enough to bother me to make me not recommend it. Very cool product. I love getting experimental and trying new things. If you want to pick my brain on best spec or parts for your bike that you're buying next, or you want one-on-one recommendation from me about which bike I think would suit you best, I do that over on Patreon. I'd be happy to help you over there. I'm curious, what experiments do you want to see next on the channel? What are you curious about? And give me some more ideas for experiments like this where I try different things and let you know what they feel like. Thanks for watching, everybody. There's a party in the mountains and you're invited.